This is the Occupy National Gathering Guerrilla Gardening Workshop here in Southside Park in Sacramento, California, 2014. This is Lucas with In League Press, guest streaming on the PMbeers channel. We're just getting started for the workshop, so keep in and we'll be learning about some guerrilla gardening and Occupy the Farm over in Albany. Look at all these beautiful squash. Wow.
I'll wait.
There's Sergi and Laura coming up.
A workshop is now beginning.
On guerrilla gardening.
On guerrilla gardening.
Occupy the farm.
Occupy the farm.
And disobeying. With great love.
With great love.
And it's brought to us by. Okay, hold on. I know it's brought to us by Poncho. From Occupy Oakland.
Occupy Oakland! Yay!
Stephanie Rollins.
Hello, Stephanie Rollins.
And others.
And
from
others.
Occupy Oakland.
And others
With us
from Occupy.
today. Welcome. Thank you.
Well, thank you for being here. We thought that a way to get us all together is universal language. That's silence. So we see kindness in silence creates unity. So why don't we start with a couple of minutes of silence? When we start. Let's go. Thank you for being here. I will let you know. A couple of minutes of silence. Using all this technology of humanity, right? Sitting in a circle and listening to each other, and we don't need permission from anybody to be here, but from the universal love. If there's anyone that we need to ask permission to, is the Native American people that were in this land before. So this is white sage harvest from some of our gardens in East Oakland. So we're just gonna go around honoring true culture, not Western syndrome as opposed to culture. So there's the culture that has deep roots. So that's what we're doing here, going deep into our roots.
I know you're from Fullerton. Your
Yeah.
speech is on the specs.
Thank you all so much for gathering here today. Our goals for our time here together are twofold. We're going to be discussing some of the philosophies that we hold very dear to our heart in our organizing work. And in doing so, there's inherently a goal of personal transformation. We're exchanging ideas together and leaving with each other's mark on ourselves and on our work. In doing so, our second goal is to build our movement. Talk about what we can do together to make our movement more sustainable, longer lasting, and more grounded in principles of radical ecology and, as we've titled the workshop, disobeying with love.
So each of us that came from the East Bay City that introduced ourselves, we've each been involved with Occupy the Farm in different ways. Kind of our binding characteristics, but each of us have had our own trajectory with the Occupy movement, and we'll say a little bit about that. I'm Effie, and I helped get
Thank you.
Occupy the Farm going in its nascent stages and have been involved the entire trajectory. The Occupy the Farm effort started around a piece of land that's owned by the University of California in Albany, California, right next to Berkeley. It is a 20-acre piece of land that is part of what used to be over 100 acres of some of the Bay Area's most prime farmland, what's called the Bay Area's Fertile Crescent. So all of this open space here is the last 20 acres of the Gill Tract. Used to be 100 acres going all the way to the ocean. I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get going. Right now I'm just going to introduce myself and some of the things that we have here to try and embody the land that we are loving through disobedience. This is some zucchini bread that was made by a zucchini that was grown there this spring. So if you're hungry, you can have some of that. We have some squash that we're growing there because we are still there on the land. We had an illegal occupation in 2012, and we've had a presence there in various forms ever since. So these are squash, and there's a huge box right there, and I hope you all will take some when you leave, because we have more of this next squash than we know what to do with. These are some photos from the 2012 occupation. I'll pass these around as well, so if anyone would like to look at them. An artist named Kelly Johnson took most of those photos. And lastly, we are safe on an acre and a half of the land in a community project right here. But this section of the land is still in danger of being developed. And so I have a petition here that you can sign in support of the community efforts to save the land. There's also open hours, so if you're ever in the Bay and you want to come by the acre and a half project that we have, you can definitely come by and get free food for yourself and your radical family. So I'm going to pass these around. And also, if you want to put an asterisk by your name, if you'd like to stay in touch, we're going to have an action planning section at the end of this discussion section, so we can keep in touch that way.
My name's Evan. Like Evan said, I'm involved with Occupy the Farm. Also, how I came to Occupy, I was doing political work centering around homelessness in San Francisco, and Occupy exploded onto the scene, and it was a super exciting moment, and I wanted to support that as a local organizer. So I worked with Occupy San Francisco, supported Occupy Oakland to some extent, and then also Occupy the Farm. But yeah, I'm involved with radical food politics and working on urban farms prior to this project, and really had a desire to have urban farming be more of a political project than than I saw it currently. So that's, yeah.
I'm Kat. I proudly occupied in San Francisco, and also as a part of Occupy the Farm. I now live in Long Beach, and am constantly inspired by Long Beach occupiers and the work they continue to do. And I'm in a graduate program and doing research on social movement.
Hermano.
My family calls me Pancho. Right now I live in the Fruitvale neighborhood in East Oakland, and I'm one of the 11 million human beings without documents in this part of the planet, and we are challenging what does it mean really to be a citizen of the world in the 21st century. Basically, we're just trying to embody what the earth wants us to do. She wants us to be fierce love. So.
I don't think it works. It says fail.
So,
This is
as I mentioned, something
So I
about
put 3 more
the
quarters and I
folks
don't
that
think it worked.
Didn't work
are
anymore.
here
Okay,
from the
so I
East
should move
Bay
my car.
today, or the Bay
Half
Area
hour?
today, is this piece of land that I mentioned already.
Do you need me to take it?
This is
I mean, if you want to keep going.
a very unique piece of land, not only because the soil is very rich from 3 creeks that run through it. You can still see the tree lines, which indicate where the underground creeks are. This one is fully underground, Marin Creek. But this is one of the reasons why the soil is so great, because we have hills back here that have been depositing nutrients flowing out to the ocean for millions of years. In the last 17 years, the community that surrounds the land has been organizing against the commercial development of this space, which, as I mentioned, belongs to the University of California, a public institution which has very special privileges because it is an institution deemed to serve the people and its education and its research needs. However, as we probably are mostly familiar, many of our public resources have been privatized more and more over the years, and the University of California is definitely no exception. And so the commercial development of this land is really exemplary of much larger systemic trends that we see all over the world right now. And it's a space that a lot of us have chosen as kind of a line in the sand. You know, there's a lot of times these changes are very, they happen in realms that isn't like Earth, tierra, like a place where we can can throw our spears down or our hearts in and say, I want to be involved right here and say this is enough. So that's what this land represents to me. I was a student at UC Berkeley when I first heard about it from Miguel Altieri, who is a professor of agroecology. He has been involved with this land for the last 30 years, doing really innovative research that looks at how can we work with natural systems to produce more food, i.e. what flowers can we plant to cultivate the insects that will bring balance so that we don't
I totally want food.
for example. So this whole section used to be
Here, I'll just buy your food.
one of the bugs that we need.
I'm not asking, can I?
Over the years, it was dismantled, and now it's used mostly by turkeys and deer. There's a whole herd of deer that live in here actually. So what we'd like to see is a restoration of that sort of education and research towards farming, seed saving, understanding those natural systems, rather than what's happening here in mostly this section, which is research on corn genetics. So towards patent generation mostly. How do we commodify seed? How do we commodify life to make somebody money, right? So it's all happening right here. It's very symbolic of a lot of trends that we see at the global scale. In 2012, as you see in some of those photos, a group of folks that were made up of neighbors, UC alum, current UC students, food justice advocates of sort of all walks of life, held a banner not unlike this one on Earth Day and walked down the street, and half the people didn't know where we were going or that was about to lead to a direct action. They just thought they were on a march for Earth Day. But there was about half of us that did know exactly what we were doing and had bolt cutters in our backpacks. So when we reached the fence there, which was, we walked down this street and reached the fence, cut the bolt, or cut the chain, and walked into the farm. We started farming right here in the middle. We occupied for 3 weeks, and we planted out about this whole section right here. We had a police raid towards the end of the 3rd week, a few arrests. The UC also tried to chill the movement, which was hugely successful. It had people, families, young folks, elders coming out all the time, participating. Tried to put a chill on that by bringing a lawsuit against several of us for tens of thousands of dollars, saying that we cost the university this and that through police, through lights, through destruction of property, i.e. the fence. Those charges were eventually dropped. We had great support from the community, and for some reason they didn't plow under all of our crops. They left them there, and so we kept on breaking in, like week after week, and farming our stuff and taking it out to Oakland communities and different folks in the area. And now, 2 years later, fast forward 2 years, working with different faculty and students, we've established a relationship with the College of Natural Resources. So after the occupation, all of this land was in the hands of Capital Projects, which is the development arm of the UC. After the occupation, these 10 acres were transferred back to the College of Natural Resources. So the College of Natural Resources is able to use this and maintain this for at least 10 years, we're told. They designated this section for community projects this year. So the community is completely in control here. We've got a super biodiverse farm happening. Like I said, these vegetables are from there. We've put out probably 4,000 pounds of produce already this season, all organically grown, and going to many different parts of the Bay Area community. This is what we see this not as a way for us to be bought off and shut up about the rest of it, but as a pilot project for what we want to see on the entire 20 acres.
Yeah.
So that's where we're at right now. It's a really unusual thing to have an occupation result in actual control of a piece of land over time, and that has been an extremely
Successful.
long, arduous, difficult process that has required some compromises. It's required a lot of discussion within our community. It's meant that some people have left. It's meant that new people have come in. It's meant that we've asked ourselves everywhere along the way, how do we keep this a project of the people? How do we keep this relevant? How do we keep people involved? How do we keep people voicing their needs and having their needs met through this space? And always pushing more into this space that's controlled by the capitalist empire, the corporate empire, and reclaiming space and the ability to create knowledge for the people. Right? That's what the university represents. experience that knowledge. We have tons of knowledge ourselves. So that's my contribution for now. That everybody else has their own versions of the story that they'll share a little bit now as well. Thank you.
Just to build on that, for me, the administration of the University of California is one of the most unethical administrations on the planet. It's where the balance of humanity was lost when this institution started developing the first atomic bomb. And when I was there as a grad student, that's when I also drove the line. They were developing safer nuclear weapons, whatever that means. So this institution is having deals with Monsanto, with British Petroleum, with BP, with Syngenta, and you name it. They have their own police, their own territory, their own laws to enforce that. So this is like a mini state. So for me, it was so important to really be challenging this nonsense, but not because we want to rebel, but rather because we want something beautiful. So when we create something beautiful, like these squashes and all that families that Effie was saying, and all the biodiversity running, and this was so awesome. So when they, the very first thing that they did when we planted 15,000 seedlings in 2 days, 15,000 seedlings, it was just beautiful. This is kind of like an ecology of joy. It's just that celebrating, and there was food like this, you see these happy shining eyes like around here. That's what it was every day there. So the university shut down the water, and what happened? Next day, Mother Nature whoosh, it was so beautiful. And as Martin Luther King Jr. says, we have cosmic companionship.
Yep.
So we need to start tapping into that wisdom of the earth, and then see that we're gonna be here for the long run. So this is a beautiful thing. For me, it was very inspiring just to witness that. Oh, okay. And then it's like, what are you're suing these urban farmers that would like to bring organic, healthy food to the people? For what? For wicked mulching or malicious watering, and it's ridiculous. So we don't even need to use words. So that's why we want to tap into this thing, that every single empty lot that you see there, convert it into something creative and beautiful. So that's why we call this, at least in the East Bay, we call it Occupy 2.0. It's continuous.
Yep.
And we have a long tradition, and this could be the Occupy 3.0. So we'd love to learn what are your Occupies 2.0 and the 3.0, so that we can keep weaving these stories of love and resistance, radical love, really. That's how it impacted me.
Is that what we're doing? That part? Okay. So yeah, just to expand a bit upon what I was saying earlier about how I came to occupy the farm and how it fits into my personal, political, etc. philosophy. Originally, I started urban farming out of necessity at this project where I met Pancho, actually, called the Free Farm in San Francisco, that no longer is physically there but carries on in spirit. And I wanted to grow my own food and empower myself rather than receive charity and just go because I am able and interested and willing to help grow food for myself but also the community. And that was like a transformational process for me, just being like, wow, actually we're building the kind of infrastructure I want to see in a post-capitalist society. We're learning how to work together, and we're learning how to grow food with found materials, reused things, and non-hierarchically, in a non-plot-based system. Like, this is really exciting. And a moment I'll never forget is a young woman who was visiting with like an alternative spring break group from a college in Montana, I think, came up to me afterwards and said, I've come to college and all I've been learning about is all the horrible things in the world and everything that humanity is doing wrong. But now I've come here and see what you're doing, and it gives me hope for humanity.
Wow.
And like, I'm not you know, I'm can be a pretty callous person, but like that broke my heart, and like really touched me. And then then when I hear through grumblings, oh, there's this Occupy the Farm thing coming up. We've got all these seedlings being started from Marin to Santa Cruz. You know, bring what you can. It's like, okay, I got a fig tree. I got a flat of tomatoes I can throw down. But we went on this beautiful march on this beautiful Earth Day, with beautiful banners, and we get there, and we're farming, and it's just amazing, and everything's just going, and people are working together, and like that was kind of the continued trajectory, is like cooperation. But to bring it back to like my personal philosophy, as we all know, we're in a drought, the planet's changing, humanity's not changing fast enough, and through Occupy and through other organizing efforts, I think we've all kind of seen the limitations of how we communicate and how we work together, and the needs and like the successes, but also the needs and places to grow in that regard. So kind of my philosophy is not to like wait till there's this super urgent moment, you know, after some collapse or peak phosphate or whatever, but like we got to start working on this stuff now, and urban farming is kind of how I've been doing that. We all eat, we all need to eat, food brings everybody together.
We said if you eat, you're part of the movement.
Yeah.
And what it was very sweet, just to jump on that tangent before we go to our brothers and sisters here. What happened afterwards, like someone interviewed this sister, is the spokeswoman of Monsanto, and she said, we have this great relationship with the University of California, we have like 17 agreements and patent stuff, and we're super happy with the relationship. We don't have to say anything, right? The activists here, like, we need to show, no, there was the tie there with Monsanto already, so that's the beauty of it, that when there's something so, like, anchored
Tangible.
and rooted in love, that you don't need to do all the rest, that you can fall into place.
Yeah, so one of my most profound takeaways from the time occupying in the streets of San Francisco was that we have a lot of our own trauma that needs to be healed, and that resisting is one way to do that. You know, as we take power back personally from the system which oppresses us, we become stronger. And as we do that together and we forge relationships, those relationships can sustain us. Yet it was also incredibly personally challenging to live in that community. There's a lot of violence, and those of us that had skills in intervening in violence, including myself, we're pretty exhausted. There's a lot of violence from the police side, and I came out of 3 months of that, and in my own home was emerging Occupy the Farm. And when I got to go and be on the farm, I experienced healing, because we were bringing together resisting in community with being connected with the earth. And the earth heals, time heals, and there's really no better way to convene in community when we include, you know, deer, turkeys, even if we have to put up, you know, barriers to keep, you know, protect the crops from them. So I think that's a big takeaway. You know, as we organize, we need to take into consideration our own health. I know so many people came out of the occupations in 2011 traumatized, or came out exhausted and physically, emotionally depleted. And I really think it's important for us to build sustainable movements by being sustainable in how we take care of our own bodies, our own selves. And yeah, having hands in the dirt is a really great way to do that. Seeing children on the farm was incredible. You know, we had a whole patch, the ladybug patch, where the young people were able to take ownership over that land. That was theirs to garden. They were the ones occupying that space, and that's tremendously inspiring.
I have a comment from a live streamer. They say Occupy the Farm was a wonderful counterculture expression. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, the Occupy the Farm effort is, as I said, it's still alive and changing every day. Recently, there was a gathering of movement folks at the Occidental Arts and Ecology Center in Occidental. I highly encourage anyone that is able to go there. And I was there with someone who works in the prisons, working with imprisoned folks on poetry and theater. He had one of these bandanas that an artist who works at the Occupy the Farm made because he had received it at the retreat at the Occidental Ecology Center. He had like this. He had it in his back pocket, and one of the messages, which is around the edge of it, the different messages are liberate the land, cultivate community, occupy the farm, resist monoculture, reclaim the commons. He happened to see the slogan, resist monoculture. This prisoner did with this teacher who happened to get the bandana through this gathering that we were all at. So the prisoner said to the teacher, resist monoculture. That was this phrase that really resonated with him. And he took the bandana and it got passed all around to these different folks that are imprisoned, and they just really resonated with the imagery, which is a lot of native plants, the bridge, the skyline of Oakland and of San Francisco. There's the tools of a land occupation, a shovel, a pitchfork, and a set of bolt cutters. So now there's several of these floating around inside of Santa Rita as a sort of connection with those of us out in the land, fighting for the land. So perhaps we can mention just a little bit about Occupy the Farm as an evolution. We've already said that it's kind of like this Occupy 2.0 where we dug into a very specific place and we used the tactic of occupation as a goal towards reclamation of a very specific piece of land. That is in the tradition of many movements around the world, peasant movements, landless peoples movements, guerrilla gardening, which is what we call it here sometimes, of people saying if it's the right thing to do, we have every right to do it. This is land that belongs to us, and the land belongs to those who work it. And so when we did our action, we gave a lot of respect and wanted to highlight the fact that a few days before we occupied on April 22nd. April 17th is a day of remembrance and a day of mass occupation in Brazil by the landless workers movement there, the MST, Movimento Sem Terra. We sent a letter of solidarity to them on April 17th, and they sent one back to us in our occupation as well. So a bond began to form there that was not just theoretical, but actual contact with people that were there. And so we've kind of understood ourselves as part of this historical and global movement. There's a roll of white paper there that are posters that I brought back from Brazil because they had a congress there in February and invited Occupy the Farm as one of the 12 groups in the United States. They wanted to come to their national congress, which we only have every 6 years, to share and exchange in their big gathering. So you can pass those around if you'd like. on the Guild Tract on August 10th. We're a militant who's been working in the cultural sector, art and culture. We'll be visiting, and she'll be talking about the role of culture, like the stories that we tell ourselves, the expressions that we use to exemplify those stories. She'll be talking about that. So the address for the farm is on those flyers. If you'd like to join us from 1 to 5 on August 10th, we'll be there with Anna Shah, who's been working in the cultural sector of the MST for the last 10 years. And we'll be making a huge mural at the end as well. So it's an
Did you hear that last piece? We're gonna make a mural after that. So I believe in that phrase, that is artivism, believe in that phrase, those sculptures, those symbols. Because art cannot be just seen as a commodity. It needs to be part of the system. Those symbols need to be replicated. Like this is like, it's not like a pie in the sky. It's a very concrete like thread that you're eating right there, coming from this. So
yeah. And one thing just to kind of bring back again, like our sails have been filled with the wind of 17 years of organizing. A lot of times by a very small group of elder women in the community that held that fire and kept it alive, of resistance around the development of this space. And so I wanna honor like the commitment and the perseverance that it takes. The MST exemplifies that. When they occupy a piece of land, only 10% of their occupations are successful. And it takes at least 5 years for them to win. And people go to jail and people die all the time. So this is not an easy thing by any means. It takes a lot of work, but it's the most beautiful fight around in my opinion. We're about to go into questions and challenges and y'all's own stories in a moment, but
I don't know. I just final kind of like we got this squash here. There's been a bunch of collards and leafy greens. We're gonna have a bunch of tomatoes, and it's just I've been blown away. We had our community day on April 26th, right?
and every day is open right now. Like
Yeah.
every day but Friday and Saturday is open hours. On the flyers you'll see them.
So going from nothing, I mean, we had the starts when we started in the greenhouse, but it just always amazes me how much food you can grow and not even really need expert knowledge. I always say the plants do most of the work, and I think that's true. So just an encouragement that like no matter how much space you have or whatever knowledge or skills you're coming to it with, you can grow some of your own food and like have a connection to that.
to honor one of our elders, he goes by the name of Tree, and he's kind of like riding this wave of Wendell Berry and Wes Jackson and all these people. Well, he said, we're not growing food and making people happy, no. We're facilitating the growth of soil and community. Healthy food and happy people is just the product. That's what we're doing.
That's right. We're learning how to be resilient because the only thing we know about the future is that there's going to be huge changes, huge shifts and shocks. And the best way for us to prepare and to build the networks of resilience and resistance that we know that we'll need is to start creating it right now and start treating each other like we're still going to be looking at each other in 20 years. Yeah, so the Poncho's encouraging me to share 3 principles of resilience-based organizing. I encourage y'all to write that term down and research it, resilience-based organizing. The 3 principles are, first, to restore our labor to the web of life. Because what we do with our hands and our hearts and our minds every day is often so separated from the larger ecology and even ourselves, it's extracted from ourselves. We're doing things with our time and our hands that aren't even benefiting us, they're hurting us. So to restore our own labor, because human labor is the real carbon crisis. The carbon that's in the air, we can do something about that once we've restored our own labor, the human labor. We are all carbon. Restore that carbon back into the web of life, into the cycle that we know. It doesn't go away. It's part of a web, part of the cycle.
What's the first principle?
restore our labor to the web of life. The second is to contest for power. We want power. Make no mistake, we want power. We want control, we want resources, we want what we need to nourish ourselves and our communities.
She's power. She's power. You see?
We are. We all are. And so when we're creating these spaces, it's going to be confrontational. Power does not see power without a fight. So it's going to be confrontational. It's going to be taking the resources we need, and it's going to be a contestation. The last is to transform the narrative. The story that we tell ourselves about who we are and how we relate to ourselves and what's possible to transform culture, to transform our ideas of reality, right? Like we have the power to do that. So transforming that narrative, transforming those stories, and with stories are bonds of community and creation, and that's I think what I'd like to move into now. If everybody's ready, is an opportunity for you to share any stories that you have, particularly of land, connection with land reclamation, things you've learned, any challenges to the things that we've said, because these are our own experiences, and to really have a resilient, strong system, we need to have critical thought as well. So we definitely welcome any challenges or things that didn't quite sit right that you want to ask or say more about. And any questions that you have for us. So we're going to spend like a third of our time now in that sort of space.
And just to bring us together, as silly as that might be, I learned it also from an elder, from a Native American elder. You can do anything silly like carrying stuff, but everybody does it. So one of the beautiful things about Occupy movement is that unison of voice. So I'd like to do a little mic check. Mic check.
Mic check.
The three principles.
The three principles
Of resilient-based organizing.
of resilient-based organizing
Are to transform. The narrative.
The narrative.
Stories we tell about ourselves.
The stories we tell about ourselves.
To contest for power.
To contest for power.
And to restore our labor.
To restore our labor
To the web of life.
To the web of life.
You have a question back here? Or
I was
a
just
comment?
curious if you were still having problems with water.
No. In the acre and a half that we have now, it's a collaboration with the College of Natural Resources. So they provide the water.
And this professor that has been there for 30 years, holding the fort, and there's the neighbors there for 15, 17 years. These incredible two women that are just like so powerful. That's what it is. It's like that feminine divine and nourishing that here.
So I'm just curious. It's amazing what you accomplished with, getting, well, you've kind of reached a truce now. You've got some land, but you said it's sort of like a pilot project. Is there some tension and some desire to let's grab more? And how long because you don't want to keep this truce and let them develop and use all the other land. How long are you going to keep this truce?
It's a very uneasy truth, and we're constantly riding this very razor-thin line, because the College of Natural Resources does not want to be seen as opposing capital projects. They're two parts of the same institution, and if the College of Natural Resources is seen as being in protest against capital projects, they're going to pull the plug. They being the administration of the UC. Right? Yeah, they've been trying. There has been a lot of seeding of miscontent and twisting of words. It's been very difficult, this process of collaboration. And there's emails right now that are live of discussions of you guys have to cool it. You guys have to cool it with the protest if we're going to do this collaboration on the north side. And we're saying, you knew all along who we are. We're not going to stop.
And actually, we're trying to cool it. What part of 400 parts per million of CO2 people don't understand? The first time in 3 million years that the Earth has had that amount of carbon. We tried to cool it. That's what we're trying to do. And I'm so happy you bring this because this is resiliency, this is regeneration, this is about love, this is about radical love, and that nourishes. It's so incredible. We won about the battles. They wanted to put a Whole Foods over there, and when it was so hit, so we went, and this sister and all these people participated in some way to say, Whole Foods, are you want to do this really? So we boom blasted and start going to the stores and talking to the managers and say, oh really, you're punishing this with this paving something instead of growing your own food. What happened? Whole Foods pull out, make an announcement, say, whoa, I don't want to go there. But of course, being this a mini state, what do they do? Well, okay, Whole Foods, you don't want to. Who wants it? Who wants it? You know, the one percenters. They're sneaking some ways in their means. So they found a store that is called Sprouts Farmers Market. It's just a store, it's just a corporate store, and they said, yeah, we will be happy to pay for stuff. And so this morphed a little bit. So what we say, man, we're the 99% facilitating the healing of the 100%. And what's going on here is that this tension is going to morph. This is a dynamic tension, but because we have cosmic companionship, because this is the Earth is but one country and all living beings are citizens, that's in our sides. They're in our sides. So it's so much love and coming through this that I don't see this stopping, but it will be changing. This is awesome. Even if we were just two people here, it really nourished us and hopefully we will nourish this part as well. Love is the new currency.
And there's also, it should be said, we have many allies within the UC, and many of our members or participants, supporters are former or current UC students. So besides a couple of professors, which are like really strong allies, we have a lot there's like a autonomous food sovereignty movement on campus. And they've won some recent victories that Janet Napolitano's taking credit for. But like the establishment of a food systems minor, and I was really blown away. At the time we had public comment, all these students came out and really gave all these different perspectives about why they thought the Guild Track was important to be held as a community agricultural resource. So yeah, we have our problems with the administration, but there's many, like, just want to give credit where credit's due, that we couldn't be here without Miguel, without Vanessa's work, and like probably more people I don't know, the use of the greenhouse and the greenhouse technicians. Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the big lessons of Occupy the Farm is you have an institutional power that you're coming up against and you're bringing the fight to, but it's not a monolith. There's friends and allies, and there's people that are enemies now that can be friends in the future. So there's people behind these institutions.
We just need them the alternative to step into that. So like, oh, there's no choice, and then oh, I can do this.
While we're still on this topic, I think it'd be valuable if you talked about your broader coalition, the partnerships in the community. Because I think that's another thing that Occupy the Farm has been particularly good at doing. Yeah.
Well, like I said, a lot of what helped us was knowing a little bit about the history, like what we were already building upon, and that there was several elder women in the community that had already been organizing, that were well connected and had their own communities that they brought to it. Right here in this section is graduate student housing, family housing, single parent housing of students. So there's almost 1,000 families here that you can't see it, but there's a freeway right here, and there's a lot of industry. So the air quality is extremely highly impacted, 70th to 90th percentile for California in terms of pollution. And the asthma rates are directly correlated with those numbers as well. So these people are really concerned about one of their major carbon sinks being paved. Like, even just open soil sequesters tons of carbon every year. So they've been allies that we've been building this year. Like, we're always looking to connect with new people, and they have really specific ideas about what they want to see here. They want to see education, they want to see research, they want to see open space. So that's been really important. Like Pancho said, Evan said, we've been building with students, with faculty, with other food justice organizations. You can imagine the Bay Area is full of urban farming and food justice organizations that have deepened and enriched and challenged our analysis. Groups like Fat Beats, groups like Movement Generation, groups like Planting Justice, autonomous groups that change names all the time and configurations are hugely important for keeping the Occupy the Farm like vibrant and dynamic and healthy. There's other gardens that have sprung up since then that are somewhat peripherally related to these efforts. Any other thoughts on networks, coalition building?
Just quickly, we also, rather than keeping ourselves at the center of the decision-making process, we're trying to, there's something called the Grill Track Farm Coalition, but more broadly, we're working to create the Gill Track Stewardship Council, which would be a way to actually empower the community and have the community drive the future process and take ourselves out of the driver's seat or whatever, make space and then make space, so to speak.
Message from
So that's
Selby.
kind of where we're at now.
We have the dynamic on Occupy Wall Street, 99% to 1%. This dynamic also exists in academics. It is, in fact, 1% of people on Earth get a college education. And so I think there's an exclusivity there that exists. And in our world, in the practical world of the 99%, most of us are cab drivers, homeless, great, diversity. You might as well say it's a diversity of tactics, because we're all trying to get by in life. And with academics, we are trying to come up with and implement a practical solution to many of the problems that are facing our culture in terms of climate, economics, and so don't be intimidated. Just like, don't be intimidated by the 1% in economics. Don't be intimidated by academics, because they may spend a whole day discussing a play by Oscar Wilde. You may spend a whole day making homemade ketchup. And be proud of that and groove on. I grew up on a Mennonite style farm as a child with no electricity, no running water, heat, no sounds like millions of dollars. So we made everything from scratch. So don't let the corporations intimidate you, because you can make homemade sauerkraut. You can make homemade ketchup. There are all these processes that are easily understandable, and you can just make them work. You can make them happen. Don't be intimidated by that 1% of academics down at the University of so-and-so who are coming up with some safe nuclear weapon now. If that's the recipe they want to process it in a mason jar, do your best to stop them. Show them something else they can do. Preserving jar.
First, I want to mention that I have a 26-year-old son, and I taught him how to make jam the other day, because he eats a lot of jam. And so he's just going through all the fruit from our fruit trees, and he's just fanning up all this jam. But what I wanted to say is I'm from Mendocino County, and we are an agricultural county and in a severe drought. But we have 7 Granges, and so the Granges have farm schools, and they're teaching the young people how to farm. And also we have a lot of older people who own property, who have chronic back pain and too fat or whatever. And so we're trying to hook up the young people from the farm school with the old people who own the land and do farming. And I don't know how many of you are vegan, but animal husbandry is also part of the farming process in Mendocino County. The other thing that we have that's very successful, which is called the Gardens Project. And the Gardens Project picks out empty lots all over the county seat, all over the county really, and they teach people how to garden, and it's beautiful. It's just beautiful, especially at these low-cost kind of residential motel type of things where the migrant workers live, and then they have all these raised bed gardens and growing all kinds of food. And just so proud of the people in my county. But do you have grange? Do you have a grange in Oakland?
Not in Oakland, but I'm familiar with the resurrection and the rising of the Grange movement. That was just an amazing thing.
I wanted to tell you guys what we're doing in Eugene, Oregon. I work with Eugene Avant Gardeners, and it's a whole bunch of people who like to garden. A lot of them are activists. I think gardening is a form of activism. And we formed last December over the winter. We're doing food not bombs in my kitchen, and the guys who came over and ladies were talking about this idea of avant gardening, and we started, and basically we just garden together, and we help people garden in their garden, and we help people start gardens, and we give away seeds, we grow starts, we give away starts, we give away harvest, and it's really quite a beautiful thing. And we set up these garden work parties on a Google Calendar, and anybody who has a garden can host a garden party, and a whole crew of us will just go over to their garden and help them garden. And Eugene is a really hotbed for permaculture, so we have all sorts of expertise. We have like professional gardeners, and we have people who don't know anything about gardens, but they want to start a garden, so we show them how. And it's really been a fabulous experience. And there's all sorts of people, because like gardening kind of crosses over all kinds of political slants, religions. Like there's so much diversity, ages, and it's been a beautiful community building thing. I just will tell you quickly a couple things we've done. We've now started a Heroes Harvester group where we glean. And you guys were talking about a mural, and that reminded me of one project we did. We went into an alley that was graffitied, littered, glass, blackberries, and they just cleared it all up and turned it into a garden and painted this beautiful mural. So it's been a fabulous experience. And so maybe in your community, if you know people who like to garden, maybe you guys could start something similar. And I brought a few patches over here, so please take them. I don't have enough for everybody, but I have scissors and
Would you be willing to show the patches of your sister? Just one of them?
Yeah, I wish we had more bigger ones that say Eugene Avant Gardeners.
Cool.
But come to Eugene.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, brother.
Can I pass them around?
Sure, yeah.
So, sorry, we have a logistics check-in.
Oh, you had a question.
Yes.
No, not really a question. I just think that it's awesome that as Occupy Oakland, we remember the early days of Occupy, right? Where Occupy Merced. I mean, we were with you so many times, and I think it's awesome that you guys have found what you have to put your time into, because, it's like turning back the clock. You're going back to, had we not been interrupted by drugs, to the late 60s and the early 70s, into what everybody started doing. I think it's great work. I really do.
I'd like to share a story of a community garden that I worked in. It was called South Seaward Gardens in Ventura, and for a while it was just kind of an empty weed lot, and people hung out there and drank beers and stuff. And then some people came in and we brought in a mushroom compost from a local California mushroom farm that just sells it for $5 a truckload, and built boxes and built grew a bunch of vegetables. And unfortunately, the owner of the land decided that he wanted to do a parking lot with the space for the bar across the street, so it's more convenient for the drinkers to drive after they drink. And so it got bulldozed and fenced off, and so it was kind of discouraging, but at the same time, like, kind of we were resilient anyway. Like someone said about resilience, we took a lot of the plants before it got bulldozed and donated them to a different community garden that was able to host them, and some of them came to fruition. But it's always good to be cautious about those bulldozers and fences after we've put all that hard work into gardening. And I guess hopefully I'd like to not see the next garden get bulldozed, and maybe if a garden's about to get bulldozed, then rally around it and make it stay a garden.
Yeah.
This will be our last